right, welcome everyone to the Tuesday night meeting of the Santa Fe Theosophical Society. Here we encourage open-minded inquiry into world religions, philosophy, science, and the arts in order to understand the wisdom of the ages and to respect the unity of all life. Now, I believe Johnny will lead us in a 2-minute meditation.
Thanks, Tim. So I was telling the guys before I found this, and I'd like to read it. So here it goes. It's withdraw into yourself and look. And if you do not find yourself beautiful as yet, do as does the creator of a statue that is to be made beautiful. He cuts away here, he smooths there. He makes his line lighter, this other pure, until he has shown a beautiful face upon the statue. So do you also cut away all that is excessive, straighten all that is crooked, bring light to all that is shadowed, labor to make all glow with beauty, and do not cease chiseling your statue until there shall shine out of you the godlike splendor of virtue, until you shall see the final goodness surely established in the stainless shrine. And that came from Plotimus the Beautiful. And it was translated by a guy with the last name McKenna. And for the last part of the meditation, I want to do some breathing. So I encourage everyone to close their eyes if you like. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Everything is flowing exactly the way it was ever going to. Breathe in. Breathe out. I am eternal, beginning and end. Breathe in. Breathe out. I am here now, fully present in this moment. Breathe in. Breathe out. I am open for a new experience. Breathe in. Breathe out. Everything is connected without separation. Breathe in. Breathe out. I have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. Breathe in. Breathe out. And that's it. This is where Tim's gong would usually sound, if Tim had a gong.
Oh. Thank you, Johnny. That was nice. Okay, Brent, so you're aware, we've been going through a book called Approaching the Secret Doctrine. And we were on chapter 8. So I guess kind of the way we do this is whoever feels like it starts us off. We usually start at the beginning of the chapter. We'll go through, kind of read, like I like to underline some stuff that stands out to me, and then we just discuss stuff that stood out to us throughout the chapter, or if we have a question or something doesn't make sense, or if we just feel the need to disagree or agree or whatever, we just talk about it. Open discussion. So feel free, if you don't have the book, feel free to interject and just yeah.
So as we're reading, then anyone can say, I've got something to say about that, and then we stop reading and then we talk about it. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, so we don't really go through and read the chapter on the meeting. We've already read it.
Oh, I see.
Okay. And like I've underlined stuff that stood out to me, so I'll bring page 1 or whatever it is, like page 70, third chapter, and then I'll read that portion that I underlined,
Okay.
and then and everybody kind of takes their turns. So if you are in the Santa Fe area, I do have an extra couple of copies of this book. And if you are not in the Santa Fe area,
I'm in the Berkeley area.
Okay. So if you have a hard time finding a copy up there, we can get one in the mail to you if you'd like. So
okay. Okay.
No big deal.
Fortunately, this chapter is only 8 pages long, so it's not a tremendous lot of reading. We read highlights from it. So
I will say at a certain point, I kind of stopped underlining because I was underlining like everything. So
Yeah. So Brent, also to let you kind of fill you in on where we're at in the book, like chapter 8, we're starting to get into like some meat, some so the first 7 chapters were more like direction on how to go about these things, and then chapter 8 kind of stands out, because it starts us into some of the teachings and the different stuff. So yeah.
Thanks.
So in the introductory note, that was my first underline, right? I didn't even get into the chapter yet. But it says she challenges the very idea of creation, in quotation marks, proposing instead a process of natural manifestation and evolution of the cosmos from an eternal divine essence. I mean, and I kind of feel like as far as every creation story goes, isn't that kind of the esoteric teaching of it? Like, isn't that basically esoterically what they're saying, as long as you don't take it literally, I suppose?
I was waiting on John to chime in on that. Yeah, I have that same thing highlighted, Tim, or underlined rather. Yeah, challenges the very idea of creation, proposing, and I like how creation's in parentheses there. That kind of dawned on me, why that was. I couldn't really come up with a concrete answer, but I did like it. And then, proposing instead a process of natural manifestation and evolution of the cosmos from an eternal divine essence. So yeah, like you said, kind of doing away with the concrete stuff, some of the stuff that we've been taught growing up, maybe, or some of the stuff that different religions teach, maybe, and kind of looking at it from a different lens.
I mean, for me, the parentheses just kind of made it, like, because creation is spoken of in a very human, anthropomorphic way, right? Like, and not to be too disrespectful about it, but like the way I build a burrito, just put all the stuff in there and then roll it up, and now it's perfect, just the way I want it,
the 6-day burrito.
The 6-day burrito, yeah.
And on the 7th, you can rest.
So I feel like, the existence of everything, of reality, of the physical world, right? There's a little bit more to it than a guy with a hammer.
So I just wanted to ask real quick, Tim. Brent, have you read The Secret Doctrine?
No.
Okay. What's your familiarity with the material we're talking about tonight? Just curious.
Well, I've been a spiritual seeker since probably about the time I dropped acid the first time in the late 60s. I've been, that's the most interesting thing in my life is discovering truth. And so I do that, and I look for that, and every which way I can find it, I entertain it as long as I can. And when it's time to move on, I move on. And so I've got a whole history of stuff like this, books I've read, groups I've gone to, experiences I've had. Yeah. Cool.
I just want to make sure I wasn't with some literary scholar before I started spouting off.
No, I'm not a literary scholar at all. Self-made, if you want to call it that.
Well, welcome to the club. As far as this passage goes, it's like, how much of evolution do you believe in? Because what they're talking about here is like full boat evolution, like all the way back evolution to abstract creation, and everything evolves from that. And so to say, there wasn't creation, well, we're talking about really, really abstract principles when we get to the point of where things begin in this cosmological scheme. And so yeah, I mean, I believe in evolution, but again, most of the Darwinists are going to hop off before the Theosophists do in their belief in evolution. That's what they're talking about versus creation here, I think.
I like that, John. So what you're in layman's terms, what you were just referring to is like, obviously Darwinism is referring to specifically we evolved from monkeys, whereas this is referring to way before that.
Like, okay, sure. Let's keep going back, and then everything is evolutionary, right? All the way from matter, and when everything came to its most constituent elements, it's all evolutionary. It's the whole time. And I think the popular conception of it is really narrow and biological. And we're talking about like abstract concepts evolving into like matter and physical objects that we're familiar with.
Right.
There's an interesting book I read like 4 times because I was underlining everything. And it posited sort of a new idea about all this stuff. First of all, it said, there's no nothing and there's no anything. Now that doesn't make a lot of sense, but he said stuff like empty space is not really empty. I mean, particles are coming into existence and going out of existence all the time. It's more like a soup or a gel or something like that. So he says there's not really anything, but he says when you look at what you think is something, it breaks down into empty space and these little tiny, force fields from quantum mechanics. And that isn't really anything either. So his postulation is basically that there's nothing substantial. It's all mind stuff. And I just throw that on the table.
Whose postulation?
Steve Hagen, who's got experience being in Buddhism. He's written a number of books about Buddhism and different things. And it's called The Grand Delusion, the name of the book. And I just throw that on the table for something to think about. Because if you're not familiar with the fact that the table that's sitting in front of you that appears to be hard is like 99.999999% empty space, and the rest of it we don't even know what it is. So he makes an interesting idea about the mind and the mind stuff and we're kind of trapped in our mind stuff and we really can't see out the other side of it. But that's just something to think about.
Along those lines, the Nobel Prize for, I don't want to say physics because I don't think it was physics, but just happened, was about the electrons in metal, which is a fascinating idea to be able to study something moving at such a finite speed. The idea of finding it, observing it, studying it.
Well,
our
perception is just limited to our instrumentation, right? And that's the thing. We just have better instrumentation to perceive that. We're on the very first page of the chapter, Pamela. We are on 69.
Chapter 8, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so if you want to go to page 70, that's really where it starts, I did not underline anything in the first little paragraph there because it kind of goes on to explain it a little bit more in the second. So for Brent, let me read you. So it's set up like a question answer format. So the book, The Secret Doctrine, is the main text of Theosophy. And this is approaching it, right? So it's just kind of a good way to understanding it. It's super esoteric, super abstract, and it's just a lot, and this book's actually very helpful as like an intro into the big book, right? So the question answer is more like excerpts from The Secret Doctrine, and then the author of this book wrote his own questions and then used The Secret Doctrine to answer them, just as kind of a breakdown to help understand it. So the first answer would be: the fundamental law in that system upon which is hung the philosophy of the rest is the one homogeneous divine substance principle, and substance principle is hyphenated, the one radical cause or central point from which all emerge, around and toward which all gravitates. So
do you have a definition?
Say it again.
Do you have a definition Do you have a definition for substance principle?
That's in the next paragraph. Kind of. I do not. Do you?
Actually, yes.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm calling it the demiurge and Kether, which is the top of the Kabbalah, Kabbalistic diagram, or Brahman, which would be Parabrahm.
So that's basically right. It's called, and I just boxed in this whole little paragraph, right? It is called substance principle, for it becomes substance on the plane of the manifested universe, while it remains a principle in the beginningless and endless abstract, visible and invisible space. It is the omnipresent reality, impersonal. I put 2 underlines under impersonal, because it contains all and everything. Its impersonality is the fundamental conception of the system. It is latent in every atom in the universe and in the universe itself, right? And that's why I like that, right? Because that takes the humanity out of it, right? If it's going to be a demiurge or Brahman or Parabrahman or something, it can't be human, you know? And so
That's right.
that's why I really like that impersonal, you know. Then it would have emotions, right? It would be angry and jealous. You know, it would pick sides, right? Like
it says potentiality, right? And that's the thing. It's unlimited potentiality in its like purest form, and to have, you know, have anthropomorphized characteristics or like, you know, characteristics would take away from its potentiality. Right, from its ability, if it is something, it takes away from its ability to become something, right? And it's a weird paradox where by taking on attributes, it loses its, you know, its supremacy, right? So it can't have any attributes, and that's, you know, it's weird to say that's God, but kind of. Like kind of that's what they're talking about, and it's, you know, because we're part of it, we're, you know, the differentiation that we all feel is false that way. That's what that one little paragraph says.
I mean, the next one asks if you know, this is an atheist, do you promote an atheistic worldview, right? I don't think so.
You know, no, not at all. Atheism is the lack of, right? You know, and that this is anything but that. You know, this is I think atheism is a belief in unbelief, right? And this is, once again, this is everything but that. This is totally different.
This is not gonna answer your prayers, Johnny. Parabrahm is not looking over your shoulder, and he's not gonna take the wheel. You know, so yeah, to say it's God, you know, it's not most people's conception of it, I don't think.
Well,
I think most people's conception of it is pretty juvenile. So
yeah, I was sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, that's that was just a diss on most people's religious beliefs. That's all in there.
I was almost wondering why that was put in there. You know, like why you know, Pablo Sender decided to throw that out there. Maybe because some of the talk was that's what this was suggesting in certain circles. Maybe people were thinking like, oh, you know, this is suggesting atheism. You know, because I haven't got that vibe yet. You know, so when I first read this the other morning, I was like, well, why is that even a question? You know,
I mean, when I think of
a
atheism,
personal God, this isn't that.
When I think of atheism, I think of just, you know, the void worm dirt, right? Like you die and you are worm dirt, and that's it, finale. You know what I mean? Nothing else. No soul, no spiritual, nothing. That's what I think of when I think of atheism. The void,
I call them the void people, right?
Yeah,
where it's just a void.
And I call them worm dirters, but it's the same meaning, you know. And so this is definitely not teaching that. I would say that he proposed that question just because, you know, the next line is in bold, right? So this work teaches no atheism, except in the sense of the rejection of idols, including every anthropomorphic god. In this sense, every occultist is an unbeliever. And I think that's she said that, right? Teaches no atheism. So he posed the question.
And then refutes every anthropomorphized God that's ever existed. There's been a lot.
There's been a lot, yeah. There's still a lot.
There's a word thing going on here. Theosophy, theos. Theos is religion. So theosophy would be the study of religion. But in this case, theosophy has no idols. And so when you say atheism, that's not religion. But when you say a void, you're saying not a void, which is a rather interesting idea.
That's why it says the void.
The Latin roots of all the words in here.
The void.
The English professor in her coming out.
It's these definitions that get in the way for people, though, right? And so this is hard to categorize. You say, do you believe in God? It's like, well, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, you go ahead. That's cool. And then, but also to be like, well, are you an atheist then? It's like, well, absolutely not. And it's like, well, then what are you? And again, that's a tough question to answer when you can't affirmatively say that you believe in a savior, you believe in a God of some kind, and you can't definitively say, oh, I just believe in Darwinist materialism, and avoid at the end. It's hard to classify. I think that's why there's not more people that are members of the society and active in theosophy.
Personally,
the Beatles had an
lack of
answer.
labels.
The Beatles had an answer for that, John. I am you and you are me and we are all together. So what are you? I am you and you are me and we are all together.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
Sounds like we really don't know what we're trying to talk about, because could we even know it, what we're trying to get to? Like, what is the ultimate behind everything? That's a pretty tough one. I would say I'm not smart enough yet to contemplate that. I mean, I thought about atheism, I thought about agnosticism, I was raised in a conservative Christian church. I mean, but I in my wisdom, I can't say that I know for sure what's behind everything, but I think it's all one. I would agree with that.
I hope it's something more abstract than my mind can handle, because I'm not that smart. And if the whole thing hinges on it, I mean, there's man-made constructions that are way more complex than I could ever conceive of. So I hope that whatever the demiurge is, however you make that abstraction, I really hope that it's something I can't conceive. I can just kind of see shades in the right direction of it. Yeah.
I like to look at it like, my mind is bound by the constraints of like the human awareness, right? So something that is beyond human awareness is just outside of my understanding, and I can grasp concepts, right? And I can have these moments of clarity where I feel like I understand stuff, but it's hard to verbalize. It's more of just like an internal thing, like for me, it's a spiritual thing, right? Like, so I feel like spiritually, I just have these understandings, I guess, and I feel good about them, but it would be really, really hard to verbalize them, especially to somebody that doesn't read this kind of literature or study this kind of stuff or have any kind of an understanding about it at all. It's really hard to explain it to them. Like,
it's the people with certitude around things, the people who are sure of themselves that it's hard to talk to about this. I think all of us, again, are seekers and questioners. And again, like Brent points to our lack of certainty around these issues. I think that's what unites us here. So maybe that's why it's so hard to label.
The only label I consistently get called is a hippie.
I don't even know what that means in 2023. So I
don't know either.
I get the same thing, but it's like, man, I'm didn't go to Woodstock.
So I work. There's a lot of people at my work are Catholics, right? And there was a couple people talking about church, and this one lady, she turned and she goes, "Well, what are you?" And I was like, "Well, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, and when I understand more of it, I'll let you know." And she's just like, "Fucking hippie," and then like walked off, and I was like, "All right, I mean, if that's what it is, like."
I don't know. Save it.
That's dicey at work. That is really dicey.
Yeah. Here we go. A little bit of an answer. The universe is the periodical manifestation of this unknown absolute essence. Yet it, the essence, cannot be identified with a being of any kind that can be conceived by human intellect. It is best described as neither spirit nor matter, but both. The periodical manifestation of the unknown absolute essence.
That sounds great.
It does, yeah.
A manifestation of the unknown is an odd sentence.
Like, let's break this down. Let's take that sentence and just destroy it and build it back. I don't know, man, whatever you guys want to do, but I would really like to get down on that one. Periodical manifestation, right? So that means that it comes and goes, correct? Like periodical, you know what I mean? Every now and then you get one of these manifestations. It comes, it grows, it goes away, and then, you know, in another period, it comes back again. Of the unknown absolute essence. How would you describe, John G, Miss Pamela? define
It's
this
the unknown.
essence.
It's the, I haven't gotten there yet. I'll come back and tell you when I figure it out.
So
Well,
here's what I got. So it's like on this week's episode of Manvantara, and right, and it starts out, and there's only so many pixels to use to craft this existence. Right. And it starts out with very, very simple geometries, and eventually it becomes like super complex, and it collapses upon itself. And eventually all the pixels have burned out, and it ends up with all the pixels are out. And then you're back into your Pralaya state until the next episode of Manvantara. It's something like that. And the pixels have the potentiality to become different things over time, making this picture that moves towards infinite complexity before collapsing back down into its relaxed state. That's how I'd say
that. I'm sure John has a presentation on that, right? Like a slide.
Take some notes right now.
Have you done a slide?
Yes,
on that?
no, I do. I totally have a slide.
So, all right, let me
prepared material.
I like this. Let me get some more in-depth explanation from you. Is the essence the pixels, or is the essence the screen that contains the pixels?
So the matter is the pixels, right? And the stuff that they plug into it is the spirit, right? And the spirit comes through and it manifests in the pixels to make the picture. And if you just had spirit, you wouldn't have a picture. And if you just had the pixels, you wouldn't have anything. You have to have the two together to make the whole thing become the drama of existence. So there's Prakriti and Mula Prakriti, and one's one, one's the other. But that's what we're talking about, I think.
I have an idea. Zeros and ones, computer programming.
This is the slide, Pamela. This is my slide, but go ahead.
But the AI, originally computers used punch cards, and then after punch cards used humans to put in data, until humans figured out this is going to take too long and we're never going to accomplish our goals. And so they figured out a way to program the computer to program itself. And this is why AI is going to take over the world. And at that point, how we will know the answers to everything.
See, we need Arvind here for this, because he's actually got like 2 published papers in the field of AI. Like, that's where his main research is at right now. Like my buddy Arvin's an astrophysicist at a lab that specializes in AI research. And it's like he showed up to one meeting, and I've talked to him several times, right? And I've been trying to like get him to come back, but he's super busy. He's got some big project going on right now.
We need him on the leading edge of the theosophic movement here, Tim.
I know.
If you want to get into AI at all, there's a book called The Myth of Artificial Intelligence by a guy who's had a couple of startups himself, and he's a programmer. And there's a lot of hype about the whole thing. Maybe someday it'll be conscious. Maybe someday it will have its own will and want to take over. This is all a bunch of nonsense. And if you read this book, he explains exactly why that is. Because all AI does is the next word that it says is the most, the probability is the highest that word will be the next word based on zillions of words and zillions of sentences that it reads. It's not conscious. It doesn't feel anything. It has no mind, no thoughts, no feelings. It can't reason. It has none of those human characteristics. It's just an algorithm that puts together the next logical word. And it does it very well. And it fools people into thinking that it's something much more than it is. But anyway, if you're interested in finding out about that, I suggest The Myth of Artificial Intelligence.
But the title, The Myth of Artificial Intelligence, is immediately informing all of those who have any interest in it that it is taking a position of not, of an AI, of a not AI, because it's a myth. The actuality, which I am no expert on, is that all of human intelligence can be input into AI through the procedures that are happening today. All of that knowledge is not there yet. This idea of having all that knowledge there has nothing to do that I've been informed of as far as consciousness goes. But ability to understand the mechanisms of the planet and exoplanets in the universe is there. The possibility of understanding everything is there, even if we're not there yet.
That's part of the myth, actually.
The Terminator's not going to come
Some people
true.
call it a myth. Some people call it the truth.
It's not. It's not.
So I've had discussions about this. I said I do use AI art in a lot of my presentations, and I don't think it's inspired, but I made some pretty weird art using AI. I asked if we uploaded everything in our esoteric library into an AI program, and and started asking the tough questions, would we get the answer? And the answer I got at my lodge was, no, man, it's not in the words, it's in the understanding. And you can go into this lodge library and pick out dozens of books, and they will explain it all to you. It's your capacity to understand what you're reading that's the problem. And so the problem isn't on the supply side, it's on the demand side, where we can't actually process even the stuff that's right in front of us. I mean, we're already reading something that's going to really test our comprehension. Do we really need something more complicated? So yeah, I think it's a little bit of a false path going down AI, thinking that it's going to spit out some answer to us, because again, I think it's our ability to understand the answer that's needs improvement.
Yeah, we're born conscious, and we're born with interface to the world through our eyes, ears, and our sensory apparatus. And that's how we learn about the nature of the world, through experience. And that's not what AI is. So
Did you read this last paragraph on page 70? The student's understanding of the occult cosmogony depends on the right comprehension of the real essence of spirit matter and its primeval evolution. This is the only sure clue which can guide his subsequent studies.
Could you read that again?
Talks about what we were just talking about, right?
It says the student's understanding of the occult cosmogony depends on the right comprehension of the real essence of spirit matter and its primeval evolution. This is the only sure clue which can guide his subsequent studies. So the understanding of occult cosmogony, so it depends the right comprehension of the real essence of spirit matter and its primeval evolution. I feel like that's important, right? So she's saying that it's important to get this. I'm looking at you, Pamela. You can't, I don't know where I'm at on your screen, but you're down on mine right below me. Looking to you to explain the real essence
I'm
of
going to
spirit
explain
matter
that
and its
paragraph.
pre-
Okay,
well,
I
just
did not.
spirit, the real essence of
I
spirit
like the
matter.
fact that you focused on it, but I do think it has to do with what you said originally. You said this is what we've been talking about. That's true. This is what we've been talking about. The understanding is limited to the capacity of the individual, and we're trying to heighten our capacity for understanding.
So that's tough to say it, not very eloquently.
Well, you have to understand what we're dealing with. And again, if what Brent was saying about, there being no empty spaces and we're swimming through this, this energy and these different planes of existence, and we don't recognize that, we're not going to get it. Like we have to understand the environment that we're operating in. And this is its basest form that she's talking about here. And only with that, like really understanding your environment that you can't see, we can't perceive this with our instrumentation, but we have to understand it exists anyway, and then move forward from that understanding. Only then are we really going to get it. But if you still perceive it as separate, if you still see these things as having separation, everything you read from then on is not going to make any sense, because you built it on the wrong concept.
Okay, so let's go just to spirit matter. Is this saying that matter is spirit? I mean, it's a hyphenated word, right? Spirit hyphen matter, spirit matter. And then the next paragraph says matter is eternal, right? So is matter spirit? And is she saying that this understanding
it's yin yang,
is dependent?
it's male female,
Yeah.
right? Like, so you need both things to make stuff.
I have a different answer. That matter isn't real. It's all spirit, and matter is an illusion.
So just use the word spirit to just help you understand, or the word matter to help you understand spirit.
Yeah, that it's all one thing. Yeah.
Yes, that's why she's combining them, just to put, so you can correlate them together.
Mm-hmm.
There are two different components made out of the same material. So in that they're the same thing, but a 2x4 and a 4x4 aren't the same thing, even if they're moved out of the same wood. They're different aspects of the same thing.
Yeah, there's a line that says, I am not a human experiencing spirit, but a spiritual being experiencing being human. And I would put matter in the context of the experience of being human, because if you try to break a bar of steel with your hand, you're going to hurt your hand. If somebody throws a rock at you, it's going to hurt. So in that sense, matter exists in the temporal world in which we are experiencing spirit.
It still counts. Like if I rock, it still counts.
Yes, it does.
And without the matter to materialize as rock, right? The spirit of rock, the archetype of rock that lives on the cosmic consciousness isn't what hits me in the head. It's the rocky rock that gets me, and that requires matter. And so I think spirit matter, right? I mean, again, the pixel and the thing on the screen, right? Both have to be there for the show to be there. I think they are different. Even if this is just a representation of something else.
So I just had a thought, right? If so what you're saying, right, spirit and matter are the same thing, then that means that so let's say one version of it, right, maybe that's the animating energy, right, that makes everything be alive. And then the other side of that could also be like the interface that helps us interact with the physical world, right? Because you throw the rock and you feel it, right? That's an interaction with the physical world. But then the spirit could also technically be the animating substance that makes life makes us conscious.
Yeah, the matter is the user interface, right? I mean, that's basically what you're describing.
Yeah.
Like, this is how we can touch and feel and interact with all of this spirit stuff is through that. That's just our interface. That's what you're saying, yeah?
Yeah.
Tim? Okay.
We
But
all
that's-
know the
but-
difference, I think, between matter and spirit. You know, I think we all feel that inside. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't even be here in this group. I mean, we feel something inside we want to understand better, and it's not matter. So that feeling doesn't completely explain what spirit is, but it does say that there's other things besides matter, and they have to do with being alive and consciousness and all the rest of that stuff. And I think if we approach this from a standpoint of what do I understand about spirit, you know, and then we could read the book, but if we can't relate to it, if we can't get it in touch with how we see ourselves, we're going to get lost in concepts and ideas. But I just look at, you know, spirit is something that motivates me. It maybe consciousness is spiritual. I'm not too concerned about what the actual exact difference is, because I think that's sort of a pathway that's going to lead us to a dead end. But if we could keep like being in the present moment and just saying, what do I know about spirit? What does this mean to me? And we could talk about that kind of stuff. And I think we're all kind of one in that, because we all know that underneath our egos that make us appear differently as individuals, we're all one. We all know that.
Oh,
Well
the,
said.
the secret doctrine is going to lead us somewhere that's not a dead end on all this stuff. And that's what's really unique about it for me. Is it's going to go deep into this kind of stuff, and eventually for me it made sense, and you can dial it back. But yeah, there's a lot of this really diving into these weird distinctions of metaphysical concepts. But I think that's what she's trying to get through with this spirit matter. But again, we probably could move at a little bit faster clip.
If you guys remember, I want to take it back a couple chapters, and she was talking about like what to keep in mind while reading this book. And one of the main concepts, the key concepts, was that everything is one. Everything is one. Everything is one. She hounded that in, and I've done my best to keep that in the forefront of my mind while reading this. And so I don't get so lost and caught up in, you know, the definition of this and the definition of this and what's the difference in the two. Because yes, there might be some differences, but yet underneath all that, it's all the same. It's all one, you know.
I want to bring something up that has to do with what you're talking about. Page 71 at the bottom. I want you to keep in your head the idea of a spiral. And the sentence is, the last sentence on that page, the three trinities emanating from the central eternal germ and forming with it a supreme unity, the initial, the manifested, and the creative triad, or the three in one. So the reason this is not three, but is three in one, is, the way I define it, is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Brahma being creator, Shiva being preserver, and Shiva being destroyer. So going back to the spiral, it's a constant spiral, it's a constant movement. So we're going through the experience of creating, preserving, destroying in order to continue creating, preserving, and destroying. So the idea of the Trinity is leading to the one idea, the one thing that is ultimately going to be, is manifest. I don't know if that clarifies anything.
No, I do find it interesting though, like most religions and teachings of spiritual nature of any kind, it seems to be like that's the trend, right? There's the three things, you know, the three things are one, the three things are one. You know, I always wondered that. I always wondered what that was about, and maybe it's not yet for me to understand because I still don't, you know, completely understand that. Maybe I never will, but it's interesting nonetheless that seems to pop up. You know, the trend seems to be the same.
It's
Yeah,
coming,
like all the
Johnny.
different religions came out of the same place, really.
Yep.
And that's one of the aims of the secret doctrine, is to point out again in 1890s or 1880s, point out exactly how all these things jive together, and she pulls from all the different available sources of the time. So yeah, we're gonna really once we get into the Secret Doctrine, really see exactly how that all plays out in all the traditions.
This is a great group, you guys. This is really a good group.
Oh, I really enjoyed
Thanks,
it.
Brent.
Having
Top
fun
of
doing
page,
this.
yeah, top of page 72, right? There's a little diagram right there. I'll read that though. I like this, right? Top one is ever existing, right? In bold, the universe in its absolute nature, beyond form and no form, down to pre-existing. First differentiation of the eternal essence, the ideal plan of the universe, still unmanifested, right? And then there's the dotted line, which is beginning of time. And through that, phenomenal, the manifested universe. So there's your three in a little bit of a chart that you were talking about. The initial, the manifested, and the creative triad of the 3 in 1. This is calling it ever existing, pre-existing, and phenomenal. This is page 72 is where I stopped underlining things. I just quit after that because I was underlining too much.
Something about what you're talking about, Tim, directly related, and this is my note, is ever existing. I put the first law of thermodynamics: energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Pre-existing, entropy, and phenomenal, 0 Kelvin. I'm sorry, there's something wrong there. I don't know why I put 0 Kelvin, but there was a reason.
This ever existing, that's probably the hardest part of all of this for me to like conceptualize and to grasp.
No, that's the answer to what came before, right? What came before?
Yeah.
What came before? What came before? Right? And the answer is the ever existing, right? That's what came before, and that was ever was and ever will be, because it's eternal, and that's the end, right? You've unraveled all the before that and before that and before that. That's what you get to. You get to the eternal.
But like I'm saying, the phenomenal, right? The lowest, that's easy. That's easy, right? That's what we live in, right? That's what we exist in right now. But as you go up the graph, it gets further and further from human understanding.
Yeah,
To try
for
to
sure.
actually conceptualize
But
the universe in its
logic
absolute
puzzle.
nature, beyond form and no form, right? Try to actually envision that and imagine that. Like, that's what I want to be able to do, right? This is where I get
I don't
frustrated,
know if we
where my
ever.
human brain isn't going to do it.
I don't know if we ever get there, Tim. Not with our human brains. I don't think
That's not the problem. You have to squash your egos.
Yeah,
That's the whole point. That's why they do that. You have to make yourself smaller to be able to conceive that. Like, we're out of perspective. And so you have to crush your, that's why all the Buddhist guys do this. They crush their ego so that they can perceive that. But that is part of it. That's part of the process.
You have to be careful about trying to squash your ego, because generally speaking, it's the ego that's trying to squash when you're trying to control something.
Well, again, I'm not recommending anybody become a monk, but or run off to the woods. But that's what those guys are trying to achieve when they do that, I think, is trying to limit themselves.
ego is not my amigo. Ego is not my amigo.
Ego again ego, and Pamela, I'm sure, would jump in and defend ego in the theosophical concept, not ego in the psychological concept. I hear you, Pamela. You don't have to say it.
I think
Go down the page. The last paragraph, the beginning of the last paragraph, the centripetal and the centrifugal forces, which are male and female, positive and negative, physical and spiritual. I think it's great. I think that sentence is great. And I think it applies to what we were talking about earlier about, or at least what I mentioned about the spiral. That if you take a well, this goes pretty deep. The universe functions either on a centripetal or a centrifugal scale. We don't know. We would call it centrifugal if the idea of the Big Bang is true, but it might not be. And so if energy is one and matter is one thing, if it's all one thing, then it's all centripetal, even though this sentence is saying it's both.
I didn't get around to looking at the differences in the two. I don't even know. I did. Those are two things that I did not look the definition up, and I need to.
Centripetal comes into the center. Centrifugal goes away from the center.
Okay. Okay.
Did you read the last sentence of that paragraph, Pamela? The last
Yeah, I read it,
sentence
but
is great, right? Everything that is, was, and will be eternally is, even the countless forms which are finite and perishable only in their objective, not in their ideal form. They existed as ideas in the eternity, and when they pass away, will exist as reflections. I really, really like that line.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should ask ChatGPT what it thinks about all this stuff. If you've ever played with it and asked it to do spiritual poetry, it is really good at doing that.
Say the name of the person.
ChatGPT. It's an AI.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay, got it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what they're talking about with the centrifugal and centripetal forces, I really thought about the Taiji, the yin yang symbol in Taoism, and how, you know, you have these two forces, they're constantly working with each other and playing off of each other. And when she's talking about this being the most fundamental thing, I think she's just pointing to the same thing that Taoism points to with the Taiji symbol. So that really stood out to me as like that's the model for the cosmological process that, you know, has been around for at least 4,000 years. And Tim, yes, I agree with the idea. They exist as ideas in the eternity. I thought that was just great. You know, I thought of, you know, the lotus flower and pine cones holding the potentiality of pine trees within them, and you know, the idea of that everything that is also has its potentiality in it, you know, built into the thing, whether it sees that or not, right? But that's in the plans, and that's when you start really kind of looking at more like intelligent design stuff, right? When you start going, well, okay, but in that pine cone is the pine tree, right? In that acorn is the oak tree. You know, that's even when it gets cut down, right? Like even when things go away, right, the shadow of those things remains, and that this allows for the reality of that, right? Because I feel that with people I've lost in my life and things that I've experienced that are gone now, and it's be like, nope, that's in the void, that's all chucked. It's not, right? And this accounts for that too. And that sense of and the way that I sense that as a reality, this acknowledges that reality.
Yeah, that's where my mind went, John, immediately, was like people that have passed on, you know, and how their memory still lives on if you allow it to, you know. Or people, you know, you see people that have passed on and they have plaques in schools or whatever, you know. I mean, people's memories live on here, but also I think, you know, our energy, our essence, it moves on as well, you know. And we say it moves on, it's still here. Who, you know, there's so many different planes of existence.
Every way that you influence somebody, right, throughout your whole life, that lives on too, right? And all the manifest ways we touch the world. So
kind of the ripple effect.
Yeah,
That's a good metaphor, the ripple effect.
Yeah. I tell you, this is off kilter a little bit, but I try to start my day with that idea, the ripple effect, right? And when I do that, I'm much better off. I operate on a higher level, and that is, you know, what kind of ripple effect do I want to have today? Do I want to put off, you know, negative energy? Do I want to put off this negative ripple? Because, you know, when you start to look at that stuff, I mean, we can have a very powerful impact on our day. I mean, it's as simple as like me having a positive attitude at the grocery store, you know, and holding the door for somebody, and, you know, not letting my you know, say I had a negative experience at work that day or whatever, and I wasn't able to brush it off. Well, now I'm carrying that baggage around with me, and I'm brushing it off on everybody I come into contact with. And guess what they're doing? You know, maybe that affects them enough to where they're doing the same thing and the same thing and the same thing. It's like the domino effect, you know? And I'm not saying I'm perfect or I'm angelic or anything like that, but I just try to keep that in the forefront of my mind, you know?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's something that I need to practice more in my life, but it's definitely good to be thinking in that direction, you know?
I feel like it's you reap what you sow a lot of the times.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that's right.
But we're getting close to the end of the evening, and I would like to put Dutch on the spot if he doesn't mind. You've been quiet tonight.
I'm here. Here and enjoying.
Any words of wisdom, sir?
Tim, I just wanted one thing from the book before you go.
Mhm.
One last thing. The last line. Yet the universe is real enough to the conscious beings in it, which are as unreal as it is itself.
All right, let's read that again. So that's page 73, last line. It just gets
Go
deeper
for
and
it.
deeper every time. You know? Yet the universe is real enough to the conscious beings in it, which are as unreal as it is itself.
Yeah. Good luck.
Maybe
Good luck on it.
maybe that means what we see of something and make judgments on it about what it is. That's the unreal part. The thing itself is real, but it's not what we think it is.
Let's read this whole paragraph, right? It's not too long. During the great mystery and drama of life in a period of activity, Amanvantara, the real cosmos is like the puppets placed behind a white screen upon which are thrown their shadows. While the wires of evolution are pulled by the unseen hands, the actual figures and things remain invisible. Men and things are thus but the reflections on the white field of the realities behind the snares of the great illusion, Mahamaya. Yet the universe is real enough to the conscious beings in it, which are as unreal as it is itself. So I mean, that's
We know.
Oh yeah, well, and of course, now it totally makes sense, right? But it's like we've talked about this, I believe, too. You know, the physical reality isn't necessarily real. That's just how we're perceiving things in this human experience.
It's what's on the pixels, right? I mean,
on the pixels, yeah.
Blavatsky didn't say pixels because they didn't exist, but it's what's on the pixels. We're on the screen talking about like what's behind the screen, and it's like, well, will we ever be able to conceive the transistors and, you know, electronic components? Well, no, we can't, because we're on the screen. But we can noodle out, we can logic out that there must be a screen that we're on, because that's the only thing that makes sense, right? And that's what we're doing. And no, we're not going to be able to say, oh, well, there's the fucking transistor. I mean, I don't think that's what TV is saying. But I think that's kind of our problem. I think that's exactly how she lays it out here too.
All right. So
there's a line in the Bible that says through a glass darkly. I can't remember where it's from, but there's an Ingmar Bergman film called Through a Glass Darkly. And it's about what you were talking about. We never see anything clearly. And both in the Bible and the Bergman film.
So this paragraph,
I'll
go for it, right? Sorry.
I was just going to say, even ourselves, our conception of whatever we are is just what shows up on the screen. We don't know. And once you start to get a handle on that, then you're not too concerned about what's behind the screen. You just see everything as one.
Or not, because that might be all that we see is a reflection of ourselves.
I'm talking about somebody that can see through that.
Well, the fun part is when you realize that, like, you're on a TV show, you can like start acting, right? You realize you have a lot more control over this drama once you actually realize you're in a drama. And when you feel like it's just random shit happening to you, it's a lot harder to take direction of your life.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the big advantages to perceiving the world this way.
On the other hand, you can't predict your next thought before it arises in your mind, and you can't predict your next feeling before you feel it. And
Well, the thinking part of me isn't in charge with me, so I get that. Like
Yeah.
that guy is just doing play by play.
Right.
There's somebody deeper who's at the controls. Dutch, I never heard from Dutch. I was just waiting.
I'm here. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. But something that when you guys were bringing up, like the levels of what we know and what we see and what we observe and feel, like going further and like changing and being able to use technology to kind of manipulate to see things in a different light. For example, in like an X-ray, if you were to take a picture of your screen in X-ray or take an ultraviolet, like what you get to see from a different standpoint. But there's so much more that we don't because of our senses are limited. But
True that, yeah.
yeah.
It says neither the form of man nor that of any animal, plant, or stone has ever been created. It is only on this plane of ours that it commenced becoming, i.e., objectivizing into its present materiality or expanding from within outwards, from the most sublimated and supersensuous essence into its grossest appearance. It's kind of like, so this original manifestation, right? Well, we read that way back here, right? Where did it say that? The periodical manifestation of this unknown absolute essence, right? So whatever that thing manifested is like that's already manifested everything, right? And so everything is matter, so it's all here, and it's all always been here, always will be here. And so, like, is that saying that humans can't create anything that hasn't already been manifested by the absolute? We think we did. We think we made up something new, but it's always been here. It's always been.
Yeah, all these guys, it's all right place at the right time. Like all these inventors, all these billionaires, it's all right place, the right time. They didn't invent any of that shit. It just came on the backs of everybody before them, and the collective consciousness got to a point where it was ready to adapt their ideas or help them make their discoveries or their breakthroughs. I mean, there's lots of books about this. And and so to think that some guy had a light bulb go off in his head, well, okay, but somebody invented glass, and somebody invented the filaments, and somebody invented the screw, and somebody invented like there's a lot of collective consciousness that goes to acknowledge it. We can just see this, that goes into anything that exists. And to think that somebody's making anything out of whole cloth. I find me the example, and I'll show you like others' contributions in that, where other people influence the creation of that thing. And I think in Theosophy it teaches, it goes beyond just that, right? It goes to this knowledge came from other places even. But the idea of original thought, well, I don't know if that exists.
Or if it did, how could we possibly know that?
Well, but the components to receive the thought have to come from somewhere else, right? I mean, there's the words themselves to put it into have to come from somewhere else. Like every component has to come from something that exists in order for it to exist. So have your original thought, put it into English. Well, all right, the English wasn't original. So I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing. I'm not saying there's no original thoughts, definitely, but maybe.
That was a good premise, John.
I'm just spitballing over here. None of this official.
I want to say something weird to go along with John's sentence or sentences. If you think about the idea that matter is neither created nor destroyed, that means, by definition, by language, English language, it has never been created and therefore cannot be destroyed because it doesn't exist.
So you talk about that perpetual motion theory a lot, and it's the top of page 73. That's like, it's another one of those charts, those graphs. Starts with eternal ideal, which is essential or nominal plane, noumenal plane, or inner, right? And so I'm not 100% clear on those phrases and terms and what they mean. But then the next one is perpetual motion, or the great breath, down to finite manifestation, over to cosmic or phenomenal plane, or outer. So I'm assuming inner and outer, that's
You could say as above, so below, and
As
you'd be
a-
saying the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Inner is as above, right? And outer is as below. And so the stuff
So-
that you can perceive is the stuff below, and it's only a reflection of what's above.
so the great breath or perpetual motion is what connects the two, right? So could that be
gives
considered
life,
just
gives life to the thing to make it happen, right? Like,
So
you got your
animating
blueprints,
energy
but
or
you need
whatever?
your contractor to come through and make the thing happen. I think that's what it is.
I got by it.
I don't know. Perpetual motion does not exist in matter. So I'm not sure
The
how it
pariah
relates,
state's going to come eventually. I mean, it's not perpetual forever.
but that would be perpetual stillness, wouldn't it, rather than motion? I don't know. I have no idea.
The way I'm taking
Surprising.
the chart is
the age
to,
of Brahman is pretty long, but I don't know if that qualifies as perpetual.
Like
It's close.
400 trillion years or something like that.
Uh-huh.
311 million trillion years.
Yeah, out there.
It's a long time.
Well, I would say that is probably close to all the time we have for tonight. Any final words? Anybody have a burning desire to say something before? And Pamela, you still want to read your poem? I liked it.
Oh, the one from the SD,
Mm-hmm.
from the Secret Doctrine?
You read that one, and then you read one from what was the other book?
The Kalevala.
Kalevala, yes.
Yeah, that's in my copy of the Secret Doctrine. I don't know if everybody, I've mentioned this before. There are two, there's more than one publication of it. My book is the first volume and the second volume in one book. And it's just so in other words, not everybody would have this poem in their Secret Doctrine. Okay, here goes. A la una, a las dos, y a las tres. In primeval times a maiden, beauteous daughter of the ether, passed for ages her existence in the great expanse of heaven. 700 years she wandered, 700 years she labored, ere her firstborn was delivered. Ere a beauteous duck descending, hastens towards the water mother. Lightly on the knee she settles, finds a nesting place befitting, where to lay her eggs in safety, lays her eggs within at pleasure. 6, the golden eggs she lays them, then a 7th, an egg of iron.
I don't understand that poem, but I really like it. It's
Yeah,
just
I
like
have
I
the
kind
same
of,
issue.
yeah, I hear a little bit more of it every time you read it.
Mhm,
7 days in a week, 7 chakras.
mhm. Oh, Dutch, you don't know, I think, I've explained this before. This is a
I don't.
piece of an epic poem that's a book size. It's a book size poem. There's just a piece from that poem from Finland.
Oh, okay.
Finland, that's Dutch's old stomping grounds.
Yeah, that's my old stomping grounds.
Mm.
It's interesting.
There's a lot of Finns in Theosophy Dutch.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. They're very logical people.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's
Hasta
time
la
for me to go to
vista.
bed. Yes. I'll see you guys later. Hey, Brent,
Red bucket.
I will let me see. Did I send you the email address? The Theosophical Society of Santa Fe at
I
Gmail?
don't know yet. I don't know.
Let me see if I can bring up that message. Are you on
Do I pass the test? Can I come back next time?
if you want to, it's all up to you. Let me
The
see if
Universal
I can
Brotherhood, Brent.
No, I
do
like you
this.
guys. Yeah, I'll be back.
All right, guys. Until next time.
Yep. See you
Thanks
guys.
all.
Asta.
Bye, guys.
Later.
Hang on, Brent. I'm sending you an email address.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a link you can click, or I mean, it's just Theosophical Society Santa Fe at gmail.com. If you want to, you can email me there. I'm the one that replies to that. And then I can, like, every Tuesday morning, I send out like a reminder email with the meeting link in it. But the link that you click to get here is always the
Yeah.
same. But I've had some problems. I think I've got them all sorted out. So this has kind of been a rough trial run getting this meeting going. But I think I've got everything sorted out, and
Oh.
that should always be a good link.
Okay. So I'll just so you're going to put the one the one that I got in on, you're going to put that where the old one is and see if it works. Is that what you're going to do?
No, I've been
Or
sending
not?
out an email every week with the link in it because the
Oh,
Meetup app and my Zoom account like sync together, and then it automatically populates the Zoom link, and it won't let me edit it, and it's populating the wrong link every single time.
wow.
So I tried deleting and restarting all my accounts and everything, and it's just like it just isn't working. So it's kind of
Well,
frustrating.
at least you don't have to worry. At least you don't have to worry about bombers.
Yeah, that's
right?
true. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because of this, if you want to come to the meeting, it takes like a little bit of effort. So I mean, I guess maybe that's keeping it like that. But anyways, if you want to email me there, I can send you the link with a weekly reminder. And if not, just save the link you used tonight and it'll get you back to this meeting. So, and I do
Okay,
answer
so
the
the
messages.
same link every meeting then.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
The one it accident. Okay, so that's all I need then to get back here. I'll just use that one from
Yep.
now on then.
Yep. If
If you want my email address, if you want to go that way, is the one that you know about because you're leading this group, because you have access to our emails, right?
I do not know.
Because oh, that's interesting. I thought the people who ran groups had that, because I've gotten messages directly from people who run groups into my email box. Now maybe it's sent there automatically.
Yeah, so
without you doing it.
There's a button you can click to message all of the members on the meetup group. And so I pay for the premium account, not the pro account, and you got to pay. And that's the difference between like $100 a year and then like $500 a year for a meetup. So I'm just like, I'm like, I don't really care to message everybody like that, because that's the only advantage I can see to it.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. How long has this group been going on?
well, we're on chapter 8, so 9 weeks.
Oh, you just started the group recently.
Just started the group, yeah.
And everybody's in the Santa Fe area?
No, they're not. Pamela, Dutch, and me are in Santa Fe. Johnny is in Oklahoma, and John G is in Portland, Oregon.
So
okay. We just
great.
I was looking for a Santa Fe group to go to and couldn't find one, and the only group I found doing anything on Zoom was in Portland. And anyways, they're real particular about who comes to it, and they change the link every week, and like, so it's kind of a nice thing that I was able to, they invited me to join them. But then me and John G got to talking, and we're like, man, why don't we make one all online, available to anybody? And so that's what we started trying to do, just put it out there, make it on Zoom, and make it available for anybody.
That's great because after COVID, it's like the world has changed.
Yeah,
You know,
that's- I know a lot of the lodges are shedding
live
down.
I live on Zoom. I mean, I've been to like 150 different groups in the last almost 3 years. I mean, it's a great place to meet people.
Yeah, it's a. I
And there's
mean,
not that many groups in the Berkeley area.
see, I would think there would be. Just
You'd think there would be, yeah, but this kind of a group, spiritually orientated, self-reflective groups, no, they're difficult to find.
wow.
Yeah,
Well, you're welcome to this one.
great,
Yeah.
thanks.
So, well, it was good to
Thanks.
see you, man. It
Yeah,
was good to
okay.
meet you.
Thanks a lot, Tim.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll see you next week.
Yeah, awesome.